So the beauty in unity is that there is such diversity in unity. And I think on this panel today, one of my most exciting feelings about it is that we come from such an amazing diversity of perspectives and ways of communicating the principles and the truth known to us. And I think that's incredibly helpful because we need to hear different languages and different paths to get things. So I know that we were just talking yesterday, Reverend Brenda and I, and Reverend Brenda was at Martha's workshop, and you work with Martha quite frequently, and she just marveled, and she said, you know, after how many of these I've been to, I still get something new. I get ahas every single time. So, with that said, let us have the basket, and we'll start with the questions. Are we excited? Are you excited? It's a fun Sunday. All right.
I always like to start with the easiest one, kind of, slide into it. When my thinking is negative, I feel stuck, and I try to reframe my thinking. Nothing seems to come to mind. What do I do at those times? How many in the house are familiar with the work of Byron Katie, Loving What Is? So what would be that when we're stuck in thinking that doesn't serve us, what would be that initial question that we ask? What's the inquiry?
Where would you be without that thought?
Yes, that's on the list. How about we start with, is that true? If my negative thought that wasn't serving me is, and Martha and I have had this conversation, I don't know how to do this. I don't know if I can go on. I don't know how to do this. And I will share that question with my spiritual mentor. And the first question she asks me is that true? We're stuck in a thought. It's like a record groove in our mind that won't let go of us. It's good to remember that we are being thought. Yes? Mm-hmm. We are being thought. So the needle gets stuck in the groove, and I spin into what I call a downward spiral where I forget absolute, I forget what's true, and so I ask the question. I can't do this. I can't go on. I'm unlovable. I'm unworthy. There's not enough. So I invite all of you to the workshop this afternoon. If you have not been introduced to the Byron Katie work, for me, I've practiced it for years now. I can't remember how many years. It has been the key to truly shifting how I do life. If you are familiar with the Byron Katie work, I invite you to the workshop this afternoon because you will be called to new depths. Anybody else want to say anything about this?
I do, of course. So it's important to catch one little concept. So that question is loaded with concepts. And just to isolate one of them and to look there is like the key to your freedom and to your liberation. And it's very common in spiritual circles and in New Thought, particularly, to classify things as negative or positive. And the minute you buy into a concept like negative, you're a goner. Versus understanding that it's just a thought stream. As Brenda said, you're being thought, thoughts are occurring, thoughts are arising, no different than the wind, no different than an ocean tide. And they're passing through, they rise and pass, they rise and pass. And we called it negative. We made that up. And then now we're hooked by that. We're a hostage to something that has no meaning, that has no power over us. And now we're in relationship with it as an enemy. So we're at war with something that has no meaning whatsoever. So if you can drop the classifications of positive and negative, which since recorded history we called good and evil, or good and bad, or right and wrong, and we in New Thought think we came up with something outstanding to drop good and evil and started calling it positive and negative. And it's the same thing. It leaves us hostage to a concept that has no meaning whatsoever. So in the times that you're under the influence, literally under the influence of something you've called negative, you can be a circuit breaker for that stream of thought by simply dropping what you're calling it. So how would I relate to this thought that I'm having if I didn't call it negative? How would I experience this thinking if I understood that it's meaningless? So there would be no war, no effect. That means, folks, no despair, no stress, no depression, no isolation, no separation. Imagine relating to any thought with a clear understanding that it's just a thought. Neither negative or positive, just a thought. And Brenda's demonstrated something outstanding here, which is the importance of understanding this humanity and this human phenomena that we're in, that we're hardwired for this. These emotions and this reactivity is built into this system, this humanity of us, this human phenomena. So there's no light switch where we flip it and go, I'm enlightened. You know, it's not an event. It's a procession, a progress, a process. So, you know, and you've heard master teachers say, when you start to believe you're getting some enlightenment, spend a weekend with your family. Yeah. And when your affirmations are overridden by the underworld, it's indicators. So I hope that you'll continue your good and strong practical applications of what you know to do. The prison we're in is the prison of our own mind, and the door's wide open. And don't believe anything I say here today, because until you test this out for yourself, it's just crazy Creek woman, blah, blah, blah.
This is a good question. I think this was the offering. What's the question here?
Well,
Prosperity.
I can say, yeah, it's very generous, and that's what I'll call it.
It's awesome. All right, so. That one's not a question, it's a gratitude. Thanks for being here. Vision, faith. And it's a tree. And it has a lot of money on it or something, too. That's interesting. We have a question here that we're going to save for a second, but it's a prosperity question. What do you think the single most important daily practice or action a person should participate in to grow spiritually? So what is the most important daily practice or action a person should or could participate in to grow spiritually? Either you guys want to start with that? Why don't you guys start with that? The one thing.
Breathing.
That is a good answer.
Seriously, for me, especially in my studies with Thich Nhat Hanh and the practice of truly being here now and being fully present, I center, anchor, and connect with source, with energy, with divine mind, with life, with love, with principle, with law, when I breathe, and when I breathe consciously. That's my daily practice.
I'm always surprised at the answers that come through. And the answer to that this morning is to question everything. Like yesterday in the workshop, something came through that said, you can't believe what you see. And it shocked a few of us. So, to question everything. You know, when we see a look on somebody's face, and the mind makes up what the face means. It says, that's rude. That's kindness. She doesn't like me. I'm not important. And then it goes off into itself. And if we don't have some kind of circuit breaker there, some kind of spiritual practice in place, as Brenda pointed out earlier, like some question like, is that true? Is that true that she is rude? Then I'm off into that. And then I fail to notice that that's me being rude and calling her rude. I've not walked in her shoes. I don't know what that look on her face is about. What I know that is I'm just a thought away from it. So it leaves me in humility and gratitude. And then I can be about what we sing and pray about every Sunday, which is, let peace begin with me. Let me be the change I want to see in the world. And we go right into the work with when you see somebody's face and the mind calls it rude, she's rude, how do you treat her? How do you react when you believe a thought like she's rude? I'm a mind reader. You know, the answer is rudely. Ever how that looks. Cut off from her, isolate from her, teach her a lesson, give her the look. Gossip, blame, criticize. So we're doing and perpetuating in the world the very thing that we claim we want to end in the world, innocently, by the way. So any spiritual practice to take pause when the look comes on her face, to take a pause, to be present to a breath, or take a few deep breaths literally. Pray before proceeding. So pause, pray, proceed. Something that will circuit break the allure of the mind, the temptation of the mind to hook us in deeper into another circus, into an illusion. So an answer also is what works for you. Like we're all practiced and wired a little differently about what would be effective for you. And my invitation and encouragement is to try a broader repertoire. So if you have a good, solid spiritual practice and it works for you, then do that. And to stay open to other ideas and to other ways and means that have been taught and demonstrated to keep the mind open, even if it takes a crowbar to open it, to keep it open and fluid enough to give other things a fair test as well. Yeah, and important to practice what I preach.
And I would say mindfulness, which I think is what's already been said in different ways. Whatever practice brings us to mindfulness, whatever practice slows us down enough to connect and get into the metaphysical of life, the mystical of life, the preciousness of life, whatever slows down that being within us enough that We have a moment of awakening, of awareness, that there is mindfulness, rather than popping right into the routine, popping right into the circuits of the hustle and bustle. So for some people, that's starting with meditation right in the morning. I think also the thing of trying on different things. We can get into routine of thinking, okay, well, I've heard to meditate for 20 minutes, sitting on the chair and doing this. And if that's the only thing we ever try, that could be very fruitful. But there are also people that can awake and hug a tree and breathe into the earth, lay on the earth and just feel that connection. It could be anything. It could be finding a spot and gazing out at something. But whatever it is that slows everything down, like the moment you hear about someone passing or an accident happening or anything that the mind considers serious, and all of a sudden it stops. Just the whole world is stopped. If we can all develop our own language and our own technique and our own ability to greet the day and to have expanding moments of the day where we recognize and just stop. For me, that creates space in my mind to have all of these other pieces of awareness that support my life.
My turn. Is the question that was sent to us on the email in here?
No, it's here.
Okay. How can I be more present with God's love every day? Let me know. Like, my answer to this wouldn't be an answer for you. As Erin just demonstrated, it could be a walk through the park, a bath, a candle, a flame, this song this morning, the lyrics, a bell, a tambourine, a sunrise, a sunset, the rain. What if there was no place you could look and not experience God? And everything. What if you could not be present to God's love? What would that be like?
Dark. Very, very dark.
The question is, what if you were always present to God's love? What would that be like? 100% of the time.
I don't know.
Imagine, get a sense of it even in your body. If whatever was before your eyes, you were present to God's love in that situation. What that would be like. My mind tends to wander and worry. Welcome to humanity. That's what the mind does. Wander and worry. So that's what we do here on earth. My mind tends to wander and worry despite the knowledge and the blessing of God's love. That's the way of it. So our salvation, our awakening, our enlightenment is even in the circumstances of that wandering and worry to experience God as reality in everything and everyone and in every situation. And it's a journey, a process, not an event. So, what if you accepted that worry and wandering was part of the terrain? What if you weren't at war with worry and wandering? Do you understand it, again, just like the wind? It comes and goes. It blows on its own terms. And wandering and worry will rise and pass. And it goes with the territory. You don't have to like it, by the way. And you sure don't have to love it. And you don't have to be at war with it either. You don't have to be hostage to wander and worry. Just goes with the makeup here.
Years ago, when I heard Reverend Robert Brummett say in teaching a meditation class, I struggled with meditation for years because, as Erin mentioned, I thought it meant that I had to sit still in a chair for 20 minutes. And one of my mother's favorite phrases for me when I was a young girl was, "You're like a fart in a skillet." So sitting still is not my strong suit. Meditation was a struggle for me. I didn't understand that there is a whole arena, a vast array of conscious contact. And when I heard several years ago Reverend Robert Brummett say, the mind thinks, that's what it does, it was a ginormous aha for me, because then there was nothing to push against. There was nothing. I was constantly saying, pipe down, I'm meditating here. Pipe down, I'm meditating here. Instead of riding the thoughts, like riding a wave in an ocean, riding the rhythm of God, riding the rhythm of a train on a railroad track. And when I learned that there was nothing to be at war with, meditation came to me so easily. Mm-hmm. The mind thinks. It's what it does. Good to know.
All right, so here is a note that was emailed in from one of our online congregants, our online community, and I got permission to share this. So it says, "Hello, I'm a newbie to the Unity Faith and an online member of your congregation. Thank you so much for the amazing message every Sunday. I have a random question that I've been trying to find the answer to for the longest, and I've given up trying to get through the millions of Eric Butterworth books I've read to find the answers. So here goes. My husband is having a hard time believing that the unity principles can lead to prosperity." They both okayed this, leading to prosperity, "since there are countless people who have followed the principles of followed the principles of New Thought or the Unity Church and seem to find success and wealth everywhere they turn. While his beliefs are changing over into what Unity believes, every time I hit him with, well, insert the wealthy celebrity's name, blank doesn't meditate or use affirmative prayer, and they don't have the issues I have no idea what to say back. If there is a sermon on YouTube, a book I can look up, or if you simply have the time to answer the question, that would be wonderful. This issue seems to really block his ability to believe in these principles. Thank you so much for taking the time to read this. It's greatly appreciated. Best, Ashley." So thank you, Ashley, for the question. I'm going to go for this first because you're going to get hardcore answers from the left and the right. So I'm going to give you some love in the middle. No. It's a good question for both of you. I think a lot of us have thought this, right? A lot of us have thought, well, okay, there's these unity principles, there's these principles of circulation, tithing, prosperity, and abundance. Why do I, not see it sometimes even in some unity centers, and I see it sometimes here and there, and all the things make sense? What I would say is there's a difference between money and abundance and prosperity, and it's a pretty it's a pretty intense difference. There can be abundance and prosperity in the most physically seemingly impoverished situations that I would have no doubt looking upon it that there is like an amazing, like God consciousness, natural expression of the inlet and the outlet, generosity of spirit, circulation of flow, absolute like living in gratitude for the moment. That can happen with or without even a bank account. You know, I mean, if we think globally, think about how much prosperity there is where there's not even a bank account. Right? And think about how much misery there can be when there are bank accounts, boats, houses. You know, I sometimes get overwhelmed thinking like, you know, it's enough to take care of what I have now. Like, I can't imagine taking care, well, you know, whatever, you don't want to limit your prosperity. But to take care of, you know, all of those, I think I'd rather do timeshares with y'all or something, you know what I mean? But all the responsibilities, all the, you know, abundance financially can lead to isolation. Like, it's an illusion to think that A equals B. Money does not equal prosperity. So I would say there's another thing to tap into. Now, I would bet that if you asked any of these people that, if you asked them a different question and you said, do you have an abundant life? Are you prosperous? And you got that overwhelming answer, like, you know, if we thought of it equal to finance, a millionaire's answer of, look, it's overflowing. I would bet that you would see the exact same principles and processes, universal truths activated, regardless of if it's in unity, if it's another spiritual tradition, or if it's someone that calls himself an atheist, an agnostic, or a pagan. I believe that we work the same universal truths of being an inlet and an outlet, and that abundance and prosperity come from those places.
Want to go, honey?
Now go for it.
Go, honey. Want to go?
I'm happy to hear you say inlet and outlet. I remember decades ago hearing about the principles of prosperity, hearing about divine law of prosperity, and being in the question of what is that? What is that? And the whole big question, totally agree, what is prosperity? So this is a series waiting to happen, Rev. The principles of prosperity for me, it was a knee-scraping, knuckle-scraping path for me. I didn't even know about abundance or prosperity until I walked into Unity in, I think it was the mid-'80s maybe. So when I heard about it and learned about it, I wanted it. And it's out there. It's out there. So I was a powerhouse affirmer. I would run for an hour in the morning and do an hour of affirmations on my prosperity. And I kept tweaking them because I thought I wasn't using exactly the right word. My 4 principles of prosperity, and it is a talk that I have given and waiting to happen, tithing, which means giving freely, giving lovingly, giving lavishly, trusting that spirit is source, trusting, I know that I know that I know that life is infinite, source is infinite. Practicing the principles, continuing to be in that flow, continuing in giving in whatever way I can. And I still wasn't there. I still wasn't home, hadn't arrived. And I couldn't figure out the last piece of the puzzle. And then the great, how many of you know Reverend Jim Rosemergy? The great Reverend Jim Rosemergy. I was here at Unity Village at a class on prosperity, and he said the G word. You mentioned it. I was not living from a place of gratitude. And when I put the gratitude piece in my 4-puzzle prosperity track, everything fell into place. Giving, trusting, practicing, and gratitude. That's my story.
It's a great example of the varying perspectives that Erin spoke to, because I heard the question literally, which was how to get my husband to believe something he doesn't. welcome to hell. And the answer, is also compare equals despair. And then the temptation, the allure to compare this to that, to celebrity one, celebrity two, to that life, to this life. And then we live a life of comparison, which again is what the mind does. Everything is contrast, up, down, black, white, tall, short, fat, skinny, rich, poor. That's its operating system. So it has to compare to operate. And our role is to be aware of that. And any kind of comparison is going to leave us in despair, confusion, bewilderment, and then we spin around in questions like this, trying to make sense out of something that you cannot make sense out of. Attempts to make sense out of things that make no sense. Instead of practicing this, which is for me to come back to, I have no idea what prosperity is to you, nor do I think it can be taught. I think it can be caught, not taught. The principles of this. And yes, giving freely, giving generously, giving graciously, giving from a place of gratitude, not to get something, however, or not to be okay spiritually, because it feels right to do it.
Because you can't help it.
Yes, it's your nature. You feel better when you do it. So if you want to feel better, do it. If you prefer to feel good, do it. Wasn't that from the 60s? If it feels good, do it. I'd just been born, by the way. Yeah. And then these other practices of being, the more I'm grateful for what I have, the more I have to be grateful for. So it is a principle. It's not something that's just unity or anything. It's just the reality, the hardcore reality of the more I'm grateful for what I have, the more I have to be grateful for. So I cannot look out and see a lack of anything. Lack only exists in the mind that says this is enough and this isn't. That's 100% made up. This is a have, this is a have not. It would be like looking at a rose or looking at one of these and going, be purple. Look at her. She's purple, you're not. Be purple. I'd be better off being purple. You're so green. It's funny. The funnier it gets, the more we open up to this. It's like to say that there's a better way to be than the way that is a life of suffering, a life of torment and hell. Because then, as Brenda said, it's out there and it's up there. And only if I can't do it. And they can do it and I can't do it. So, whose business is what your husband believes? And whose business is what you believe? And in which one of those arenas can you bring about any change whatsoever? So our BS, our belief system, is the one place in the world that we can bring about any change. And it's a full-time job for this one. So I'm seldom entertained but anymore. It was only 40 years it took me to give up trying to change somebody else's belief system. And then I'm aware today that it's no different than mine. And if I believed it, I'd be doing what they're doing too. So I'm just a thought away from it. And thank you, Ashley, for the question. It's got me thinking.
Good. All right, so one of the comments that I've gotten when we've done Q&As is that there are so many questions and we only get to a few because there's a lot of people who put questions in here. So I am going to challenge you both to a 10-second round. We're going to get through as many questions as we can with the shortest answers possible in the last minute. Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Contestants, are we ready?
Yes.
All right, and one of you can take it, but only one person answers each question. Ready? So you can't double answer the question.
You ain't the boss of me.
Yeah. All right, how do I deal with a friend that is not open to other religious practices and is vocal about or ignorant of other people's practices? How do I deal with that?
Mind your own business.
Okay, how does unity reconcile the concept of evil?
Head in the sand.
How do we, I don't even think I ever heard it, how do we open up to move more completely to unseen guidance?
Listen and follow it.
What is the speed of prayer? Why do we feel so much darkness, and how do we stop it?
All feelings are effects of thinking.
What is the balance between positive thinking and giving appropriate attention to genuinely troublesome emotions and circumstances?
Would you say that one more time, please?
What is the balance between positive thinking and giving appropriate attention to genuinely troublesome emotions and circumstances?
Very delicate balance. It's part of the all.
Allow both.
And I'm going to answer this one. Why doesn't Unity do baptisms? We do! Christenings, baptisms, baby blessings. We honor and acknowledge the divine blessing in which children are born. Not that they're born in original sin, but they're born in clear original blessing. And so just let any of us know if you'd like one.
And it varies among Unity churches.
Yes. How do I get past being cheated on?
Walk away.
Don't cheat yourself.
How do we maintain an open forum of ideas within ourselves and our organizations? How do we maintain an open forum of ideas within ourselves and our organizations?
Well, naturally, it has to start with self. If I am not continually open and willing to new idea, new horizons, I cannot expect anyone around me to be that.
Model and teach.
What is the Unity view or your personal view on reincarnation on this planet or other planets in the universe?
This life is a full-time job for me.
I don't know.
I came today to give thanks for my healing from major surgery. Can you give a great thanks for this and also bless all of my family while they are on vacation this summer? Thanks.
Yes, and you just did.
I think we can get through all of them, so we're going to go for it. Okay, this is the last one. We spoke briefly yesterday. I'm guessing that means me, but it could have meant any of us. Question: when one pays someone to take care of your horses and they agree to certain tasks, I think this is for you, and offer to take excellent care of them, the result was lack of attention, which resulted in pain and suffering, horses being put at risk, and much expense. I had a conversation with them, and to something real care took real care to use I statements. In our conversation yesterday, I was told this was my responsibility. I would like a clear explanation of this statement so that I can understand and get resolved ASAP. Thank you. Blessings.
Yeah, and I'd like you to speak to me directly when this is over. I've got 2 words that I can answer to. Reality rules. if you believe in such a thing as agreements, then you're focused on the agreement. So you're in a fantasy world about what an agreement's going to get you. And reality says something else. So until you align with reality, great suffering ensues.
I want to honor our panel. Thank you all, and honor each question that was posed here. Thank you all for creating a service today that I'm sure your question may not have been just your question, it was in the hearts. And together we were able to roll away the dew. We were able to bring light. So thank you for the consciousness that collects in this sanctuary that brings the questions and answers the questions, and also leaves the questions unanswered in our hearts to be discovered.
Amen.